to kind of counter the idea of Pugna. It's like, oh, they got the Pugna early. Let's go ahead and get heroes that are good against it. Does that really come to mind, or is there really not that good of a choice necessarily?
It's not. You don't necessarily want to counter the Pugna in most cases, especially in this current meta, because Pugna can be an offlaner as well, and you don't really want to commit too many counter picks against an offlaner. But it does, of course, it does change your perspective on the game. Like, there are certain heroes that you don't want to pick into a Pugna, for example, because, Netherward can destroy certain heroes. So there's definitely some thought process there. But I think for effect, especially, this is just a very solid opener because, again, this is a very flexible hero. Can play played in the off lane, can be played in the mid lane. We've seen it as a carry as well. We've seen it even as a support, even though as a support it's not as strong. So it just leaves Empire a little bit of guessing here, right? You don't really know where to expect the Pugna, what kind of lane configuration to expect either, because, again, can be a solo offlaner, but can even be used in aggressive lane as well. So, but at the same time, you could make the same argument about Empire's lane as well. While Void has been seen a lot as carry, he's still a very potent offlaner as well. And of course, together with a Lich, there's like a lot of potential for dual offlane as well if they wanted to. So Empire also very flexible right now.
Yeah, usually in those first couple of picks, it's good to get that very diverse heroes you're ultimately getting at. And Pugna seems like he does fit that theme. So as you're explaining it out right there, it actually does make a lot of sense that potentially he could be a really strong first-second pick. But again, we really haven't seen that, so it's been curious. But Effect is kind of changing that mold here at least. And now they go Disruptor as a 5 support option, of course. So that now limits Pugna a little bit more, but still, either the off lane, the mid, or the safe lane are definitely all options we could see him in.
I found it interesting that Empire pretty much dedicated 4 bans to supports. It's not something you see all the time, especially because Effect obviously had a support in their first phase. But I think it goes to show that Empire value or doesn't necessarily respect the impact the carries on Effect side could have. Not necessarily the players, but rather the heroes that they could pick, right? Because I think Empire with a Void, I think they feel very comfortable facing almost any core position, because the Void inherently, with a Chronosphere, can almost negate pretty much any core they pick. Whereas the supports, there's a lot of supports that are really strong against the Void. And you can already see they banned the Bane, pretty much one of the best counters against the Chronosphere and the Void himself, and the Witch Doctor as well, which is also can be detrimental during Chronosphere. So I just love the way that Empire is approaching this draft, and then they just immediately pick the Potom and the Enchantress. It almost feels like Empire knew after they had the first 2 picks what they wanted out of this game. Though I could make the same case about Effect as well, because they immediately picked Disruptor and Lina, 2 very excellent heroes as well.
Yeah, but I gotta say, Effects is definitely a little more curveball, right? It's a little different. I look at Empire's lineup and you could almost predict, these 4 heroes, absolutely, no question. I mean, this was going to be the 4 heroes to see out of Empire, and even in that order to an extent. But again, Effect with the early on Pugna. 4th pick Lina even, though. It's like that's not a hero that really gets picked up a lot nowadays in that mid-roll. I assume that's where we're going to see her end up. But they decide to go with it, so perhaps they have a game plan too. It's just we'll see what it comes together with the final pick even, but very curious about that. We do have to get this out of the way real quickly, as people are already bringing it up. Yes, Empire, they are using a ringer here for this first match, stand-in, whatever you want to call it. As you notice, Mage is currently standing in for FN, who is their usual mid player. From my understanding, it's just going to be for the first game. FN couldn't make it for the first game. He will be here. There is no drama here, guys, just to be clear off the bat. Just simply
also, Mage also has to play another official soon anyway, so he literally can't play more than 1 game anyway. So this is definitely just a standard. It's an interesting choice for sure, because as far as side note, Mage is actually a Dane. I'm not 100% sure on this, so I would have to check this. And obviously, Empire, they speak Russian, so
good point.
Mage is from Jordan. He's from Jordan. I mean, he still doesn't speak Russian, so this is interesting for sure. Maybe Dota is a universal language in a sense anyway, so there's not a lot of things you need to talk about.
Get those pings.
But this definitely will affect Empire's performance for sure.
Yeah, I mean
it should anyway.
That's a fair point.
Positive or negative.
Mage is a player that, by the way, I personally don't know much about. I know he's newer onto the scene. He was a part of that Cinderin squad at the beginning of the season with Cinderin, Hanskin, Yonisafan, and Era, I believe it was. Then they eventually, of course, fell apart pretty quickly right there. But I know that he was kind of the name on that roster. And I was like, oh, well, who's this guy? We didn't get to see much of it, unfortunately. I did see him a little bit in FPL, more so, and he seems like a solid player. But curious to see how he does for Empire, as you're pointing out. Again, maybe the language barrier could be a minor issue here, but we'll have to deal with it at least in the first game. So I assume he's going to end up on that Mirana, though. Again, the FN Mirana, notorious, and Mirana in general is a strong mid-hero. So they're probably looking for, well, either possibly the offlane or that safe lane at this point.
It's probably an offlaner. I think you want to. I think if you protect the Void with so many bans, you most likely want him as a core carry as well. And I mean, at least the last game I saw Empire pick a Void, it was their carry as well. So I assume this is going to be their carry. And I think it just makes more sense to have an offlaner. Well, I guess. All right, I guess it could be both ways. It could still be technically the only offlane, but yeah, having it either way it's not that big of a deal. But Void is definitely a very important part of their puzzle, a very important piece of their puzzle. Whereas the fact, like you pointed out, the draft is a little bit of a curveball in a sense. They're very squishy. If they get caught out by a Chronosphere, pretty much everybody's going to die. They don't have a lot of like defensive capabilities either. I guess the Cryptify from Pugna is pretty much the most defensive spell they have. But they also they sort of lack a frontliner, right? Right now they have Pugna and Lina and Shaker who deal a lot of damage, but none of them can really soak up or draw the attention. Soak up damage or draw the attention, and well, this is the whole hero I kind of was looking forward to, a hero like the Chaos Knight that can sort of draw the attention and deal with the front lines, whereas allowing Lina and, Burst Shaker or Pugna to do their thing.
Chaos Knight really can't be too surprised at that one. That's been again, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I really wouldn't be surprised if he has been the most popular carry hero in this event throughout the group stages, now into the playoffs here, just in general, let alone Effect picking it up here for Sadoy. I know that he played it actually a fair amount of times in the group stages as well. So, but yeah, the Afonine Lina here, that's going to stand out to me as far as that mid matchup goes, going up against the Mirana being played by Mage in this case, and how they're ultimately going to land it. So it does end up being the offlane Pugna as well, going back to that early Pugna pick, and how they could have easily transitioned it anywhere, whatever made the most sense as far as how the draft plays out. But now that we got both lineups right here, do you lean towards either side as far as, without knowing the players and the team names or anything, just simply raw looking at the heroes? Is there Dire or Radiant that you lean towards?
I think the Dire lineup is easier to execute. If I just look at both lineups, I think the Dire one is easier to execute. There's a weird timing in the mid game or in the early mid game where they're rather weak, because the Void is, as an offlaner, just doesn't do a lot, and they can't really deal with, say, the Radiant grouping up. But I think because they have the Chronosphere, they can weather the storm and definitely hold high ground, definitely long enough for everybody on the Dire side to come online. So even if Effect hit the timing where they basically run over Empire in the early mid game, I don't see them closing it out on time for them to actually win the game. So for me, I think the Dire lineup is much easier to execute. They have very easy team fight with the Chronosphere. They have push with Lone Druid. There's gank potential as well. They have a lot of physical damage of course, but also then the magical damage from the Bottom and the Lich even. So in my head, I think the Empire lineup is easier to execute, but I do think there is a certain time window where Effect can definitely run over Empire here and potentially give themselves a big enough advantage to win the game. Maybe like the 20-30 minute mark. That's where I'm looking at Effect.
Yeah, get that early game going, win the laning phase, and then work off of that. Try to catch Empire off guard before they really start to come online now. As we are on the pause here, again, to kind of just quickly recap how these teams got here. Empire, not really surprising. Definitely one of more of the expected teams to do very well in this event. They went 3-0 in their groups. They had a couple of losses, including on the final day to Vega Squadron, and ultimately what ended up being a not really mattering match, because at that point they had already qualified and Vega Squadron was actually already knocked out. But still, they went 2-1 in that series. Then they went 2-1 against SFT, and then they went 2-0 against Hellraiser. So again, ultimately undefeated in groups. They got really the top seed going in. Effect, on the other hand, had a little bit more interesting of a route. Not only did they have to get through the initial open qualifier section, really, to get to the group stage point even, but then they ended up in a three-way tie with Mouse Sports and Mid or Feed, actually, with all having a 1-2 record. defeating one another really, and it came down to the individual games won instead, and because Effect actually took a couple of their series to 3 games, both against Mitterfeed and even Kingwin, they ended up actually winning that tiebreaker over what was Mouse Sports and Mitterfeed, thus why they are here in the matchup against Empire. So it's safe to say, though, Empire definitely the favored in this matchup here.
I mean, even if Effect had a clean run in their qualifier in their group, I still think Empire is most likely the favorite here, regardless in this entire qualifier. If we look at the CIS region as a whole, I think Virtus Pro has pretty much shown that they're still the #1 horse. Even though, yeah, I think they only qualify for one event, it's still, I think their performance alone speaks to itself. But then, there's Navi, who's also been very dominant and has qualified for, I think, 2 or 3 events. Actually, 2 events, and then there's Vega, and then Empire. So it's a bit difficult because Empire, they were at TI, they were really strong, even with the stand-in, and even before TI, they were really strong in the CIS region. But right now, they're sort of battling against these other teams, and they're sort of trying to be at the top. They're not getting there just yet, but I think if we just take those top 4 teams, Virtus Pro, Navi, Vega, and then Empire, I don't think the other teams come close to them just yet. So for me, Empire definitely a favorite going into this entire qualifier, but it's not going to be easy regardless because, as you mentioned earlier, this is a single elimination playoff, and anything can happen in single elim. So
absolutely,
I definitely don't count out Effect. A lot of the Effect players as well, a lot of experience on their side. Mag, probably one of the most experienced players in CIS, and probably one of the most skilled as well, individually speaking. Seedoy has been pretty much bouncing from team to team, but also almost always been a very consistent factor. And Alpha Ninja, back when Power Rangers made DAC, 2015, he was pretty much the standout performer on that team as well. So this is definitely a team that has the potential, that has the skill to compete with the best in CIS.
Yeah, and on Mag also, again, he actually had the very recent stint in Southeast Asia for the end of last season. Remember getting to cast him a little bit there. I actually got to cast the Southeast Asian regional qualifiers, and so I got to see his name pop up. I believe he played for Mineski throughout those qualifiers there. Of course, coming up just short in the end. But now back in the CIS region, though, and competing with Effect right here. But, yeah, no, I think you definitely described it very well as far as kind of the tier list right now within CIS specifically. But it goes back to as well, these players do have history with one another, playing against each other. So, yeah, sure, as a team, Empire, the more expected. But Effect, it's not like they're new to facing off against these guys, both in pubs and especially tournament matches. On top of that,
that's the funny thing about how Dota, or how pretty much any game works, any competition, any competitive game works, both in traditional sports but also in esports. There's always going to be this sort of like rock paper scissors scenario where one team, despite say Empire is the best CIS team there is, they still will lose to Virtus Pro because Virtus Pro just has them sort of like figured out. I think in a direct competition between Virtus Pro and Empire, Virtus Pro pretty much wins 9 out of 10 games. It's just weird because there's now that we have these 4 teams in the CIS region, all of which have proven to be very strong, and pretty much all of them qualified for a LAN event, except for Empire, by the way. Empire, the only team that hasn't qualified for a LAN event yet in this season. We'll always see this rock paper scissors scenario where they beat one another, even though they were just so dominant against the other team.
Yeah,
it's I don't know. That's just very interesting to follow.
NA's the perfect example of that, if anything.
Yeah.
I mean, NA's definitely going through that whole rock paper scissors scenario, absolutely to the extreme. So, but yeah, CIS, you definitely following suit, at least a little bit less, but also the similar idea. All right, though, we're out of the pause. You're going to start now seeing how the lane's going to develop right here. So you mentioned at the beginning of the draft it not being banned, and sure enough, Empire ends up with it as they pick up Maposhka's Enchantress here. So it is going to be that 4 position Enchantress, going to be roaming around and looking to set up some ganks with those crews. Well, why Enchantress over Chen? What's the argument to be made there?
Enchantress. So Chen has always had difficulties scaling into the late game. There's been some Chen players that have sort of tried to mitigate that issue. So if you don't hit the timing, like 20, 25, 30 minutes, and don't get a huge enough advantage to actually just win the game. flat out, Chen falls off very quickly. Some players mitigate that issue by going Midas and Chen, for example. We've seen Poppy build Midas and Chen once, for example, a couple of times, I think, actually, and it does help, but Enchantress just scales much easier into the late game. She isn't dependent on a dominant early game because she can always transition to like a damage dealer with her ultimate, of course.
Yeah.
So she's just a natural pick in that regard. She's also much more aggressive early on. So I don't know. It's also more difficult to bring her down. Really, she can be really annoying in the entire game because of untouchable. So she's just a very solid sort of aggression pick in comparison to Chen.
All right, lanes are about. Middle lane matchup, Mirana versus Lina. You got the wraparound happening. Fan score on Lich. He's going to try for the courier snipe, but he is going to be there too late. Yeah, it's a little too quick.
Very unfortunate. That's actually almost the perfect timing for it as well. You can tell that this is pretty much a train movement, basically. Like this has become a little bit standard, especially in the CIS region, because of Solo. Solo sort of like set the pace in that regard, you know, as a 5-position support, trying to snatch the career. Because you don't always expect it from a 5-position support. But unfortunately for him, he doesn't get it. But this is pretty much the laning stage that I mentioned in the draft, right? This is the dual offlane with the Lich, and I wouldn't be surprised if Miposhka soon enters the fray as well, because it's going to be very difficult for the Radiant to keep their creep wave close to their own tower, because one camp has already been blocked. So it's always going to be easier for the Enchantress to go gank as well, because the creep wave is always going to be in a very compromising position for the CK.
Yeah. Yeah, Lich constantly sacrificing the creep wave, pushing it back in Faceless Void's favor, so CK having to deal with said issue right there. So also early on in the laning phase, going to give us some time to try to figure out where ultimately Lone Druid ends up. Lone Druid's one of those heroes, and I feel like more recently has actually held the thought because Earthshaker could be in some trouble. King R rotating into the Enchantress, did not realize he was here, and Chappie will finish him off for the first blood. So obviously a great start for Empire, and that's the power of Enchantress. A jungle roaming hero in general can just catch you off guard all of a sudden. Before you know it, you're trapped up.
She's just a very annoying hero to deal with. Miposhka's also done a very good job at not showing himself around the map at all for the past, 2 minutes now. So they never really knew where he was. So Earthshaker just immediately caught off guard, and it's just very difficult to track Enchantress movements like this, because you don't have the necessary vision to deal with her. You sort of expected her in the enemy jungle, and that's why they had a ward even inside their own jungle. But Miposhka just hasn't been there the entire time, so they literally have to now have the Shaker sitting here. Oh, I'm watching the Enchantress, guys. I know where she is.
That's what he's doing for now. He's actually trying to steal a creep, and he'll do that on the Weldering Ripper. So nice little bounty for King R right there, and kind of getting a little bit of response to getting killed earlier. Still ultimately Enchantress having that last laugh after getting that first blood. But yeah, back to Chappie though, playing this Lone Druid. Honestly, it seems like we've been seeing the ranged Lone Druid make a bit of a comeback recently. And, you know, he has a Faceless Void on this team that you have to also keep in mind as far as the Chronosphere's coming out. So is maybe that ranged build here what we should expect, or could you see the bear build?
We could see a hybrid. I think Matumaman was one of the first ones, you know, when the ranged build was very popular. He was one of the first ones to sort of introduce a hybrid build where you start out as the ranged Lone Druid, and then you slowly start building back into the Radiance even. And I think we could see a hybrid here. I think there's benefits to both sides. You know, the classic Radiance one is perhaps a little bit vulnerable because focusing solely on the bear against the Pugna, CK, and Lina, all of which have a lot of single target damage and, you know, can technically burst on the bear quite quickly, is a bit dangerous. So seeing a hybrid build wouldn't necessarily be bad. But generally speaking, I do prefer personally the bear build more so than the range build these days, because I think game-wise it is more consistent in terms of what you get out of it, at least in the current meta.
It's been interesting because obviously he really exploded with that range build after the patch and with the talent trees. And it's just people are like, yeah, this is just as absurd. And he was a better version of Sniper, really. But ultimately, they made the nerfs, and then people were kind of just stop playing the hero. But then they're like, wait a second, you know, the bear build's actually still pretty good. So then we started seeing him picked up again with the bear build occasionally. And it's kind of come full circle how it's now he's being played like I think Valve almost intended from the beginning, of course, that you have the option, right? It's like, do I go range? Do I go bear? I can adapt depending on the game. And so it feels like he's actually in a pretty good spot ultimately as a hero right now.
Yeah, he definitely feels that way. And like you said, it's definitely, or at least I think in my head, the idea is for a hero and for the talents especially to give these options, right? You don't want to have to, like, pretty much have like a straightforward way of playing a hero. I think that's actually a pretty boring way to approach a game, and that's why I do think that Lone Droid is actually really an example of the current sort of like balance of the game. Feels very balanced, feels very natural to play as well, and gives people a lot of options as well.
Well, right now he's using that Spirit Bear to harass quite a bit on the Pugna here in the offlane, and he's 22-5 against Pugna, 17-8, so definitely winning that top matchup for the time being. Earthshaker's nearby, and not gonna stack here. I thought he might have been going for that, but no, just simply pulling the creep and heading back towards the middle lane now. How's that middle matchup going though? We got Lina 29-5, Mirana 26-6, so slight advantage for Lina right here at this point.
It could actually be even worse, or it could even be better for the Lina, but this Enchantress has been harassing the Lina quite a little bit with the Tornado, of course. And that presence alone makes it a bit difficult for Lina to stay in lane. Especially, again, you don't really see Miposhka a lot. I mean, now obviously King R scouts out Miposhka, but up until now, we haven't really seen Miposhka a lot on the map. Effect hasn't really had good vision over him, especially since their ward ran out as well, or was even dewarded. So it's very difficult for Effect to keep track of them, and that immediately puts Alpha Ninja on edge, right? You don't know where the Enchantress is, and it doesn't allow Alpha Ninja to actually step forward. He can't really cross the river. He can't even go into the river, really. So this is a very difficult game for him to play.
Bottom lane, big time dive right here. Our Zeke just throws out the Thunder Strike. That's all he can do. The Glimpse is still on cooldown for plenty of time, so Faceless Void gets credit for the kill there. Actually, that was Miposhka getting credit, and Mage will get credit for the kill onto Earthshaker as well. Chaos Knight getting there late, but obviously damage already done. The hasted up Mirana comes in to assist. Almost wasn't even necessary, though. Enchantress and Faceless Void seeming like they could take care of that. Just look at where they can dive them, and just didn't feel like Effect could really respond to it. Despite that,
they really can't, especially since their supports were the ones getting caught out. If this had been Seedoy getting caught out, Seedoy isn't quite tanky himself. Obviously, it's a CK, and he also has the Helm of Iron Will. If he had been caught out, maybe they have turn potential with the supports coming in and dropping their spells. But because their supports were the ones targeted, there's basically no turnaround potential. And now that the creep wave is getting killed behind the tower as well, there's potential for them to even dive the tower to try and get Seedoy, though. This is a CK again, and you probably don't want to dive him underneath the tier 1 tower, but still, Empire applying a lot of pressure in this early game already.
Oh, as you say that, they're going to go for it. Now Sonoi's not really next to his tower. He's going to go back in with the Reality Rift. Nice little juke attempt right there, but the Centaur Stomp. Miposhka's ready for it. The slow from the Frost Blast as well. Sonoi barely making an escape for now, but it's just not going to be enough. Gonna throw the Chaos Bolt, hope for some return damage, but unless he can make a cute play with Reality Rift. Also, you see Lich right there. He's like, I'm gonna let Gostic get it. And sure enough, he does. So, nice dive once again. 4-0 start for Empire. This is the exact opposite you were talking about that Effect needed as far as their start's concerned.
Pretty much. Their lineup isn't necessarily the best one to fight from behind either. Just because the heroes need a lot of levels, they need a lot of items as well. I think we've highlighted, like, I think, yeah, we were casting yesterday or the other day, and we had a lot of CK, obviously, and we highlighted pretty much this hero needs farm, and he doesn't have a lot of good ways of farming quickly in the mid-game. So if he has a bad start like this, it's going to be really difficult for Chaos Knight to come back. Especially if he is not going for the Midas. And he can't really go Midas either because they need him in the mid-game. Like, he is their carry after all, and they can't really fight without him either. So this is just a very rough position for Effect to be in, but their hope is currently, I believe, it's obviously not over, but, they need to do something, I think. They need to do something soon, potentially smoke up, even with the CK, and maybe try to go for the Lone Druid and then transition it into Tower Push. They have the Pugna after all.
Well, they do have a hero that is great for roaming in that mid position, of course, in Lina, and she's level 7, even level 8 right now. She is, excuse me, basically top farm in the game, up there with the Faceless Void, who just recently surpassed her, but overall doing very, very good as now you see her jumping back up even with a couple more creep kills. So Aphanage is kind of the shining star at this moment. He's going to go pick up Arcane Boots here, and definitely working towards the eventual Bloodstone, of course, but kind of on that note, I mean, with how this game's going, can he afford to go right into the Bloodstone? Would that even make the most sense? Or maybe does it go perhaps more like the Yule's route here to try to help catching people?
I think the Bloodstone route is actually pretty solid because you don't really. The Yields is nice generally, I think, but not having. I think having the Bloodstone makes him much more difficult to kill, and with Empire's lineup, you know, one Chronosphere can pretty much kill the Lina immediately. But if you have the Bloodstone, it actually makes it very difficult for them to kill you in the Chronosphere early on, unless they commit all 5 heroes to it. So
Yeah.
I think the Bloodstone would be a nice pickup here, but yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult call to make because, as I pointed out earlier, their mid game right now looks a bit weak because their CK's had such a bad landing stage.
Here we go.
So that lone druid kill could be really important, and it is.
There's that roam we're talking about. You also got the Decrepify from Pugna, by the way, so that Laguna Blade just explodes Lone Druid. I don't think that was necessary at all, but that's something else to keep in mind, all that amp damage.
Yeah, I think this was pretty much the best response I could have had. When your own safe lane goes bad, well, there's ways... You know, there's 2 ways to respond to that. Either you try and help the safe lane be better, or you just make their enemy safe lane bad as well. Like, you kill the enemy safe lane, you potentially take the tower. And I think the way the game has been going, they definitely need to kill the Lone Druid. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried again, but I'm not sure they know that both Vanspor and Mikoshka are around as well. So, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Alright.
Yeah, that's a pretty fragile target right now, but honestly, again, this burst is very impressive at this point. Like I said, Mag with that Decrepify, Nether Blast itself, of course, is doing plenty. And then you throw a Lina and an Earthshaker on top of that. These guys are going to drop pretty quickly, and they get the top tower, so this is definitely what they needed. And more importantly, too, they're also keeping Lone Druid in check in the sense he had a Hand of Midas just about finished, and now with those 2 deaths, he's going to be a couple of minutes even, if not more, delayed. On the
his bear is also on cooldown for like 80 seconds, so his farm is going to be very much down the drain for now. And yeah, I think this is pretty much the perfect answer or response from Effect. Their CK has been hammered in lane, and he's pretty much been, you know, destroyed. And what they do is they draw the attention away from the safe lane, away from the CK, and then in turn focus on the enemy safe laner. And suddenly the CK, you know, he's catching up in farm, and suddenly he has higher net worth than the Lone Druid.
And then you find Vansker. So, all of a sudden, Lina, we talked about it, the Shining Star in the early laning phase. Boy, are they working off of that. She's almost level 10 now. The Bloodstone, of course, well on its way as far as being finished. In fact, she spent money on some. Okay, she spent money on the recipe here so far. Okay. She still needs a couple more of the components, though. Of course, can split up those Arcane Boots. Middle lane. Obviously, now Empire's in the spot. Well, we want to react on Lina now. That'd be a nice gank, but she's a little bit too quick. Manages to get back. I'm
a bit disappointed by how Empire basically responded to this entire Lone Druid scenario. I think after the second death, they should have definitely had some sort of like wards inside their own jungle. I guess Vanskor sort of died while trying to ward in a sense, but I think they should have secured a vision together, not just like have Vanskor walk in there by himself, because they do have the Chronosphere. They have Chronosphere. If they want to fight, they can fight.
Well, they're trying to here. That Moonlight Shadows, though, coming out just a little bit too late, it felt like. They wanted to use that aggressively to try to catch Lina off guard, it seemed, but by the time it activated, Lina had already spotted the Faceless Void coming in even, and able to fall back. But Gostic in position now. With that Chronosphere, you know something's coming. Vansker, he does not have Chain Frost yet, so wouldn't be able to assist right here necessarily with the big nuke. And they're not going to dive that tower.
That ward might give them. It's a good ward for sure. It's probably the best ward Vanskor could have placed just now, but it doesn't really give them a lot of information. They did, for example, they didn't see the Earthshaker behind the tree lane. So if they had actually gone in there, that would have been probably really bad because Earthshaker has a lot of turn potential, of course. But yeah, a lot of time wasted on Empire's side because they tried to force something with the Chronosphere just now. It's just one of those things, right? You lose your carry 2 times. You sort of like feel like you lost your own jungle to a degree, and then you think to yourself, well, let's just do something. But I think this response was a little bit late, and I think it was great on the Effect's side to sort of like not give Empire an inch here, because if they had immediately died again to Empire, I think that would have given the momentum back to Empire. But now it feels like it's on Effect's side, and they might even be able to get.
Oh, wow, that was
so
some interesting
close.
Interaction right there. Time walk just before he could get the Static Storm. Remember, Reality Rift, it does not stun, obviously, and the Chaos Bolt came out a little bit too late. Now Chaos Knight, that Chain Frost, it's not even going to bounce back, but it won't matter. Or maybe it will? No, it's just too much damage. Obviously, Lina doing what she could nearby, but not enough. So, yeah, very good reaction on the part of Faceless Void. realizing he was getting pulled in. If that Static Storm catches him, who knows what happens. But not the case. Meanwhile, Enchantress is going to be found, though. Laguna Blade is here, and that's another kill for Half-O-Nine playing the Lina. So nice find at least on Enchantress, and they do get a kill out of it in the end, despite losing Chaos Knight just prior to that.
It's obviously not a great trade, but and the Chaos Knight, he already had his omelet anyway, so he didn't really lose any gold. And getting rid of the Enchantress is kind of nice because Enchantress has been taking away a lot of resources. She's been farming very aggressively. Poshka just doing a very good job of trying to be as annoying to Effect as possible. But yeah, soon the Bloodstone is going to be there for the Lina, and after that, I wouldn't be surprised if Effect try and force something. I think the Bloodstone timing might even fall perfectly in line with Earthshaker's Blink. He's very close to it, in fact. They gave him even the tier 1 top just to make sure that he gets the early Blink as well. So if they have Blink and Bloodstone at the same time, Effect should probably look to be very aggressive.
Yeah. That had to be a misclick by Lich, by the way, with the smoke. I mean, he did it right in the middle lane on a Mirana that was farming up the creep wave, and he was also in vision anyways of this, of the Radiant side as well. So that was a very curious smoke decision right there. But yeah, I'm guessing it was a misclick. He placed a sentry ward right after, so simply didn't realize where they were in the inventory. It happens. Double damage rune picked up by Mage on Mirana, and they're heading towards that top lane, trying to keep Sidoi in check, which they so far have done a good job of, but he makes a good job. Does a good job of going in the trees for now, but now Mage opens up, finds a free kill on our Zeke, despite getting caught by the Static Storm kinetic field. It's not going to matter. Bottom lane? No. Enchantress just hiding nearby.
It's actually interesting. The way this sort of like worked out for them, even though they, as you mentioned, the smoke was very obvious, it was in the middle of the lane, they were still able to find a kill. Almost actually got the CK. It was very close to getting the CK as well. If the Disruptor hadn't shown, maybe they initiated onto the CK. I'm not sure they would have gotten it, but it would have been close for sure. But yeah, looks like bottom lane though. This might be the next destination of the fight.
Yeah, using that Nether Blast to take down the tower. Good for it, of course. And that's where Pugna's kind of the anti-Lich to an extent. As Chronosphere comes out, catches a couple, including Lina. This is trouble. The Chain Frost bounces over Half-O-Nine. He is going to fall to one, and he just got the Bloodstone. Oh, the worst case scenario. He literally just picked that up from the shop here, and now it's on 8 charges instead of the 12.
Absolutely sucks. Absolutely sucks. This hurts a lot. Good response from, or good initiation from Empire, of course. Ghostic with a very strong Chronosphere. I thought he would only catch the Pugna, but catching the Lina at the edge there.
Yeah.
I think Effect just didn't expect that there was, or potentially underestimated the range of that. But yeah, this is good for Empire. Their cores definitely need the space that they buy themselves, especially getting the Lina off the map. Getting the Bloodstone charges off of her is pretty strong, and it just buys Empire so much time for their own lineup. They're not on a timer. Empire can take this as late as they want. They have the lineup for it. So delaying this mid-game aggression or mid-game impact from Effect and their cores is pretty much all that Empire wants.
Lone Druid is just quietly farming now in his own jungle. With that Hand of Midas, of course, is just going right into the Radiant. So it's pretty committed to the Bear build here. He did get the level 10 talent of 250 health as well. So yeah, at this point, it's safe to say it's just going to be an outright Bear build for the Lone Druid instead. And I mentioned that earlier with the idea of the Chronosphere from Faceless Void. It makes it a little bit awkward, or potentially, but it's still not a reason to just not go it outright either. So gonna have to deal with that.
Though there's also the concern regarding Effect's lineup. They have a lot of strong heroes against the Bear. Pretty much some of the best counters, in fact. CK with Reality Rifts, Minus Armor is actually really strong against the Bear. Then of course Lina with a lot of damage and with her long range makes it very difficult for the Bear to really siege a tower as well. So that's why I think going a hybrid build could have potentially been a better solution. But the Bear is still very strong. They have a ways of protecting him. Oh.
Catch Pugna here with an arrow, but there's a lot of backup. They're still kind of going in. Mac throws up the Decrepify on Enchantress stopping it, and Mirana's going to be able to barely escape out of that kinetic field. You do see the Nether Ward is put down. The Laguna Blade helps snipe down Mirana after she gets glimpsed back in, but now here comes that Bear. No Radiance just yet. No Sacred Relic even, but it will be enough to beat down the Earthshaker right there. Chaos Knight, he wants to fight though. Unfortunately, only gets one spawn of an illusion out of that Phantasm, so not nearly as scary, but still might be able to make a play here as they pull back in with the glimpse on a Chappie. Life Drain coming out on top of that, and that is going to be a kill on Lone Druid as well. So this is a very kind of slow, awkward fight here at this bottom lane. But Effect does get 2 core hero kills, and they only lose Earthshaker there.
It was very awkward because Ghostic was actually farming Ancients, and he was very low on HP. So he couldn't really join the fight. If he had joined the fight, yeah, he would have had a Chronosphere, but he would have been pretty much instantly killed. But if Empire have a Chronosphere in that fight, and they are able to play around the Chronosphere, they probably turn it around. They're just not able to really catch any of the Effect side. And that's, I guess, one of the downsides to Empire's lineup. Their catch is very much dependent on the Chronosphere. Without that, they only have really the arrow and, I guess, whatever creep that Chandra's has. So Effect can pretty much just kite around Empire, just go back and forth, and that's pretty much what they did, right? They lured them in, and then they immediately retreated, and when Empire retreated, they glimpsed them back, they stunned them, they slowed them. So this is definitely a concern for Empire, but this is pretty much just based on how they took that fight just then, and because Ghostic wasn't around to join the fight. I think going forward, they shouldn't really be as concerned, but if you're Effect, I guess you think to yourself, well, this is definitely a way we can approach these fights going forward. Like, if we just exploit that that weakness on Empire's side and Empire's draft, we can look to take those fights.
Yeah, definitely can't overlook Pugna either. I mean, he's level 13 at this point. He's up there with the best of them. His farm is, you know, he's in the middle of the pack, but he's not far behind. He's got the Aether Lens, and the Rod of Atos is actually pretty much finished here. He's going to be able to buy the pattern, and thus the delivery of it as soon as he wants right here, at least. So gonna have a nice another crowd control ability. Lone Druid top lane. They want to try to gank him.
Finds a Chronosphere on the Lina. That's pretty much a dead Alpha Ninja, isn't it?
Oh, LSA. Arrow, arrow, arrow. Oh, he almost ran into it, but he dodges, and no, he's not dead. Although Fanscore runs him down and throws out the Chain Frost. That is definitely worth it.
He still denies himself, though.
He did. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, Lina used the Bloodstone charge. Just, I'm not even sure the ultimate would have been enough to actually kill him. I think it hit him, and he was still he still survived on a little bit of HP.
The Boschka, return damage. That untouchable, of course, helping right here against the Chaos Knight, but it's not going to be enough. Phantasm Army helps do her in, as well as the assistance of Earthshaker and Disruptor. So yeah, we're watching that top lane try to develop a little bit, but by the time that jump happened bottom, they had to TP back, and thus Lone Druid just continues to farm as well. So yeah, whether or not it was going to kill him, I mean, it caused him to deny, which, again, in the long run, I think is definitely worth it for that Lich to make that sacrificial dive right there of sorts, but losing Enchantress.
Especially because he had to deny before the Lich died, so he didn't even get any Bloodstone charges out of it.
Oh, yeah. He's down to 6 charge. God, that's such... This is what the thing... My not opinion on this, but the idea of this item is just so, like... It's so risky to me always, and I understand there's like Lina and Storm Spirit are the two that come to mind that you like always see it on, and it's understandable, but man, it's just a game like this happens though, and the value of that item just feels like it goes so downhill all of a sudden when you're at 6 charges a couple minutes after you get it.
So yeah, especially since you dedicate so much time farming it, it definitely can feel very unrewarding at times. And it's sort of a double-edged sword in a sense as well, right? Because if you don't get your charges up, the item almost becomes useless to a degree. But it's just a very important item to have. If he didn't have a Bloodstone, if he had a Yield Scepter instead, he would have died during the Chronosphere. The Void actually did a lot of damage with his Mask of Madness, but because Lina is so tanky right now, it was not possible for him to kill her. Though, not sure about this time around.
Oh boy.
Oh, the bash!
The bash proc happening. Has Chronosphere in 4 seconds if necessary. Alpha 9's surviving for now, but it's not going to be enough. Mage runs him down. A couple auto attacks later. This gets the kill. You do see a response attempt from Effect. They're running with Sadoy. He has an Echo Saber now as well. Going to beat down Marauda. Splits up with a Phantasm. And definitely going to pick up this kill. Out comes a Chain Frost, but a little bit late. Going to be able to do too much in return, although Disruptor gets caught by the Entangle. They want to also get Sadoy. Not going to happen, though. The Radiance Burn is going to finish him off despite the Decrepify. Trying to delay that. King R will also fall off to the side. And so they get a couple of responses out of that in the middle fight here. But ultimately, a 3-for-1. They lose Marana. They get yet another kill on Lina, though, and now it's down to 4 charges. It just continues to feel worse and worse for the Lina here.
And for this entire fight, they didn't even have to commit the Chronosphere whatsoever. So this is pretty good for Empire, actually, because if they wanted to, they could group up and maybe force a fight, or, well, I guess not really force the fight, because Effect probably wouldn't want to take it, but maybe force down the tower. And I actually think they should, because right now they're sort of... Even though I said they're not on the timer, I think they're giving Effect too much space around the map. I think Empire just feels too confident just farming, you know, on all their cores. Oh yeah, we're all getting a lot of farm, and yeah, sure, Lone Druid is the top of the net worth. But I think at the same time, they're giving away too much time and space for these other cores to farm up, and suddenly Seedor is the 3rd highest net worth. he pretty much had the worst laning stage you could ask for. I mean, I guess he did get a lot of farm in terms of last hits, but he lost his tower early on. He lost his lane pretty much early on, and he was killed as well. So I don't know. I think they're just giving them too much time. I think they should just try and force a fight. Maybe force down the mid tower, force down the bottom tower. Just get more map control as well.
Yeah, Mirana we haven't really talked a lot about yet, but you do see the item progression of Mage. He chose to go that first item, Dragonlance, which is definitely a good item for if a lot of fighting's happening earlier on, but not necessarily going to really enhance that farm compared to something like even the Yasha, Maelstrom, etc. But has that now into the Diffusal Blade, so has the nice combo here, and sure enough, Empire is searching. They're going to find a treat here in Mag, and they definitely should get this kill. No Chronosphere should be needed. Crepify is making it a little more awkward, but that'll get purged off eventually. And they do take him out, so nice kill onto the Pugna. Now how do they react off of this? Again, they still have Chronosphere at this point. Go for more objectives. Seems like would be the smart decision. King R, he was spotted right there. He does have the blink, so that reaction of effect is definitely ready.
I guess I go Roshan, which also makes a lot of sense. Honestly, they could go both Roshan and a tower, in fact. Even though Pugna's going to be back on time for a tower defense, if if they do force a fight, I think they could do both. Though as I say that, looks like Effect wants to contest the Roshan, but they can't. With that arrow, I don't think they can anymore.
They're still going. Vanscore going to be caught initially. Ursher going to see jump in. No, he couldn't get in there in time. He does stun at the perfect time, but Mage will eventually pick up the Aegis. And oh my god, that was an explosion onto the Enchantress right there. So Chaos Knight does show off that if he's able to catch somebody, he will drop them. Does do a couple. So they get the Aegis, but comes at a little bit of a cost, and Lena's hunting. This could be a kill on Caustic. He's dying. Look at the play. Time lock. No, he couldn't get it off. The Fissure stun hits in time, and they ultimately find 3 kills. The Glimpse is not going to take in Chappie anywhere for a kill on him, too. But, I mean, they got the Aegis, but they lose 3 heroes and a lot of tempo here.
They do. And with that, I guess if I could apply a little bit of pressure on this tower, I don't think they should be able to get it just because the bottom is here after all. But yeah, this is pretty good on the fact side. Again, they couldn't get the Aegis, but I think they pretty much got the best trade they could have gotten. They would have never been able to get a tower, so what they did was just get 3 heroes and maybe get a little bit map control back as well. So that's pretty nice for them. But again, Empire, once the Void comes back, I fully expect them to, or I hope. I think if you're an Empire fan, you want to hope that they, smoke up and then potentially just force another fight. Because again, they have the Chronosphere, they haven't used it in seems like forever at this stage. And it is pretty much the single best spell that they can use against the lineup of Effect. So, yeah, they might just look for a fight here together with the bottom and just the Void. And unfortunately for Effect, Void just passes by the scan, so they don't know he's here.
Big chance for that Chronosphere. They find King R. They know he's here. He used a Shadow Blade, but obviously leads into a death. Although the return kill from Lena happens. That burst of F9s. And again, the Bloodstone up to 8 charges now all of a sudden. So he is recovering, and he's actually up there at the top net worth now with that Lone Druid at this point of the game.
Speaking of him, he's looking to chase Effect here. Effect tried to gank the Lone Druid, but now that those TPs coming in, Effect or Empire are trying to turn it around, but Effect are not going to be caught up.
Oh, that tickled. Yeah, but he does avoid it.
Again, it's a bit awkward on Empire's side. They don't really have any catch potential. When the Void is down, what are they really going to throw at people, right? When the CK is retreating like that, what can they do to prevent him from retreating? And the answer currently is nothing. So this is definitely a concern going forward, and in big team fights as well. The longer the game goes, the stronger even the CK is going to become, and the more difficult it is even for Empire to keep him down. Because without the Chronosphere, and even with the Chronosphere, it's going to be really difficult to keep the CK down. Once he picks up a Hard, once he picks up an AC, yeah, they technically could potentially kill him, but if they don't control him, he's going to kill them first in most cases as well. So this is definitely going to be difficult going forward, and I think this comes back to Empire just giving Effect a little bit too much space and time to farm up on those heroes. And right now, I think they're actually on a very even footing. And if you look at the experience and gold earned, we're back to only a 2.5k difference. That is absolutely insane, considering how this game has been going and how Empire probably should have been ahead by much more.
Yeah, only 1,000 net worth lead as well. I mean, I definitely agree with you. And this is one of those games where, as far as okay, well, let's talk about the scaling into the late game. I think you could definitely make an argument for both sides, if anything, perhaps even leaning towards effect. That level 25 talent of Lina becomes very dangerous, and then Chaos Knight. We've seen plenty of him recently to know that this hero is absurd in the late game stage, especially with some good farm, and which he's definitely gotten towards now, at least at this point. So he can just have that option to pick somebody off with a Phantasm Reality Rift quickly, and that somebody could be from the Lone Druid to the Bear to the Enchantress, etc. In these fights. So definitely see effect is most certainly in this game. And then you have also this glorified support, the term there I like to use, of Pugna, who's only going to get better and better as well. Who in a Blink Dagger, by the way, he's not going the Ags just yet. Speaking of that idea of a glorified support, it's such a high value item. It seems like. So I'm expecting him to maybe get an Axe. Could you see another direction, or does the Ags make the most sense to you?
I think the Axe makes a lot of sense. I think it's pretty much one of the go-to items at this stage of the game anyway. I don't know. It's always difficult to say whether or not Ags is good on some heroes, because there are some heroes that, you know, are pretty much the best Ags carriers in the game, or rather where Ags is like a must-have item. But even for them, the Ags build-up is just very awkward, because Ags, yeah, it provides you with stats, but those stats aren't even that great in comparison to other items of the same cost. So, but still, I do think that it would be a good choice here.
Chronosphere open on Earthshaker. Oh, Decrepify's nearby, that puts down another one. He's going to save it for now, allows him to blink. Gostic, can he get in here for a bash? No, he cannot. What a save from the Pugna. Happened to be right there, ready to go.
Middle tower has fallen.
But Empire now taking a tower. Of course, it is very unfortunate that they don't get a kill with Chronosphere, but at least getting a tower is going to be very important here for their map control as well. But I believe that, yeah, that Aegis ran out actually a couple of minutes ago already, I think.
Oh, wow. Lina just bossed to the top lane. He's going to drop Faceless Void.
Wow.
I caught that lit. I don't know if he was seen porting it or what. It seemed like he almost was. And Gostic just like disrespected the idea that he could just jump him and kill him, but maybe not. Aphanine jumps and kills him, and now he's looking for more. He doesn't have the Laguna Blade, of course, for 30 more seconds. That barrier is pretty low, but they're going to find Aphanine. Maybe he's overstayed his welcome. It looks like he has. Yeah, he has to deny himself right there before they kill him. So Lina overstaying a little bit. Sidoi, though, trying to capitalize now. As he runs in, the fight continues. BKB popped by Mage, looking to drop RZeek. Again, the Decrepify with the save. Reality Report on Chappie. It's a little bit beefier than the other targets, and taking longer to kill because of that. The life drain assisting, though, and down it goes Chappie. The Reality Report on Mage. He's barely able to leap away before he gets bursted down as well. They're also going to find Vanskor playing that lich. So we'll end up being 3 kills as they lose Lina in the long run.
And this comes again, these kind of fights come back to the fact that this CK was allowed to farm pretty much the entire game, and that Empire's lineup just doesn't really deal too well with Effect's lineup if they don't have Void and the Chronosphere. Void, not only did he use the Chronosphere earlier as well, he was dead on top of it, so it's just very difficult for Empire to take these head-on fights like this, especially with the Phantasm up, and they don't have a good way of dealing with all these illusions. And honestly, I think they've reached a stage where they have to kind of avoid those fights unless they find like a really strong opening with a Chronosphere. But the way Effect has been playing, they're never really giving them these good Chronospheres. I think the best Chronosphere we've seen was a 2-man Chronosphere bottom. Yeah, this is a nice one if they get this kill, which they should. It's a nice one, but it's also just a single one, right? It's just a single target.
It is. It's on a key target, but yeah, I understand your point. Now, this sentry is the only reason they're able to get that kill right there. Without the sentry, they did not see him in that spot. Now, Enchantress, though, gets caught hanging around too long, and he's living for now, though. Those Nature's Attendants are healing up quite a bit, actually, and making this a very difficult kill right here on a Miposhka. That with the Untouchable, as usual. A tough kill indeed, but man, is he really going to live through this? Fissure finally comes out. Another Decrepify, another blast. There you go. That'll finally kill her. Surviving
it's just very awkward to kill her because, yeah, they have to use Decrepify really to kill her to prevent her from like turning around and stuff. But at the same time, their magic damage output isn't that great on these 3 heroes because they are more about control more so than burst damage, and you don't really want to drop the Echo Slam on that. So it just takes a little bit of time. I mean, Poshko was kind of playing around with them as well. They're even considering bringing in back Ghost Stick, but I think somebody made the call now. Just don't go in. Miposhka's dead anyway, and I think it was a smart call because I don't think Void would have really done anything there.
They do have a gem on Earthshaker, by the way, and yeah, Gostic was running into that situation, so phew, that was close. Earthshaker was running back after him and almost tried to jump him there, but no, he gets back in time, so he'll be fine for now. What is he going for? Okay, BKBs are coming out. He's going for his, being that Faceless Void. Mirana already has hers, as we saw earlier on, and AC's almost finished on Lundred. Speaking of the cores right here. At least on the Dire side. So that's the item progression on the Radiant team. You have Lina. A Silver Edge is going to be the choice, actually. And then Chaos Knight, of course, that heart. There we go. He clicks the couple more items he needs. He gets it. He now has the full heart of Tarask right here. But Silver Edge, so let's talk about that. What's the idea with the Silver Edge, you think?
It just allows him to have more burst damage early on. It's a very strong item, I think, on CK, just because the stats are really strong. You know, the mana is something actually you can use, the attack speed, of course, and then the bonus slow, of course, is also really nice. And if you find somebody with Reality Rift, and you get that, not only get the minus armor, but you get the double hit from the Echo Saber together with the Chaos Strike. If you get just one proc, it's very deadly. It's very deadly, and being able to burst down any target on an Empire's side, especially if it's something like the Void, who has high mobility and can walk off the damage, is very important. So I really like the build, and
going for a kill here. Lundred got glimpsed back. An awkward Reality Rift, but the Static Storm hitting him as well. Laguna Blade, he pops a Shrine, though. Again, Lundred proving to be pretty beefy right here, and he actually survives. Chaos Knight's having trouble finding a good target. In comes the Echo Slam, though, and they're dropping Faceless Void. He couldn't get a Chronosphere off that whole time. He still had it. Satoy taking the impetus attacks. Meanwhile, on that Chaos Knight, he is getting low and eventually will be killed off. Actually, he's dead for 70 seconds. Aphanine, he might be in some trouble now. He's going to be slowed down by the Diffusal Blade. It's going to be an ultra kill for Mage. It just all of a sudden started adding up right there. The right clicks, picking up that Maelstrom, all that spread damage happening. And just like that, it's a 5-for-1. It seemed like such a good start for Effect as well.
No Chronosphere used. No Chronosphere used. It was just very awkward because they couldn't all commit to the Alondred from the beginning. The CK was very far ahead, and the others weren't able to follow up immediately. If they had, they would have been able to burst him down for sure. But I also think that, what was it? Was Laguna Blade on cooldown, or was it used at the very beginning? Let me see. Oh, it was used at the very beginning of the fight. Either way, they didn't have enough burst to just bring down the Lundred. If they had, I think this was a completely different fight, but not only did Lundred survive, the Bear survived as well, and with the Radiant's mischance, this makes it very difficult for the Chaos Knight in those fights, especially in prolonged fights. So, well, very unfortunate, and they are forced to buy back on the Pugna as well, and it doesn't even do that much. They still lose the racks.
Yeah, they lose the racks. BKB committed out of Mage, but just to make sure to escape right there at the end. But you're right. I mean, the lack of burst damage, I mean, it was bursty, but Lundred really showing off that he is tanky, man. That Hooded Defiance alone. I know he got that very early on in the game, but that proved to do a lot of work right there against the Laguna Blade nuke even from the Lina. And mentioned with the Radiance Burn mixed in, over time, if you're not going to get that early burst on a hero that you go for, then no doubt it's going to favor Empire.
And the way the fight was spread was also very just, I think, a bit of a miscommunication from Effect, because the Lundred after being gone on initially, he was able to make it to the shrine, and then only the Lina and I think the Pugna were focusing really, and then suddenly the CK was focusing somebody else entirely, and then they were basically not focusing any target together as a team anymore, allowing the Lundred to survive, allowing pretty much everybody to survive, because they were so focused on, like, one part of the team was focused on preventing the Void from getting off his Chronosphere because it's such a huge spell, right? But that in turn basically cost them the fight, because yeah, they killed the Void without him using Chronosphere, but they lost the fight because they were unable to kill the Lundred immediately as well.
Enchantress, Hurricane Pike, go with the Hooded Defiance that she also got very early on in this game. But Enchantress's damage is also something you got to start respecting now quite a bit, and maybe an Ags on herself could be potentially coming. What about the Ags on Pugna? Okay, he is going for it. He does have the point booster.
He's going for it.
Needs the 3 items here.
I think Blink first.
Yes.
It's just I think this itemization makes a lot of sense. You know, having the Blink first. I mean, Rod of Atos, Aetherlens, Blink, just for more mobility, more stats, better range, and then having the items afterwards. Because if you go those items first, you have more mana as well to sustain the items in the first place. That's pretty nice.
Top tower is under attack.
Some mid-wars action going on. Roshan is up, but Empire, they're trying to roam around and pick somebody off first. Lina would be a great target, and she's in trouble. Time Lock Chronosphere. Don't think she's living through this one. She is not tanky enough. And she will go down. That's 80 seconds. Going to be dead for. And actually, more heroes are caught on the Radiant side. They also get Earthshaker. Now Sadoi's also going to get caught. Oh, no. It's just going to get worse and worse. No buybacks on the two currently. They would not have a buyback on Chaos Knight either. He's going to pop Phantasm. Trying to run against a lot of illusions out of it, but it's not enough. He goes down as well. And it is falling apart for Effect right now. The arrow is going to just simply go through our Zeke. Is he too going to be run down? Glimmer Cape and survive. So now if you're Empire, you got to be careful. I mean, you don't want to waste too much time just running into the base, but they are going to go for the range Drax middle. We'll see how they react ultimately to this here. Probably bottom, yeah. Okay. No more backdoor.
Because CK used his Phantasm, and I think it was, I mean, it wasn't a bad decision because he knew he was dead, right? But because of that, they know that they don't have to feed the CK, even if he does have buyback, because when CK comes back without Phantasm, he's basically useless. Very unfortunate for Effect. Basically losing this game in, what, one fight and a half? That one fight basically turned the momentum around. They lost sort of like the map control as well against Empire, and now they just got picked apart. I think a very undeserved ending for Effect, who played very well in the mid game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why I said I think the draft from Empire is much more straightforward. They have so much. I think it's very straightforward in what they want to do. You know, they have the team fight with the Chronosphere. They have the pick-off potential with the Chronosphere. They have the push, of course, with the Bear. And, well, just because of the Bear, one team fight immediately transitioned into pretty much, you know, map control and then the Rax as well. And that's just something Effect didn't really have. And Effect were unable to take, like, those big team fights. Yeah, they got, like, a lot of pick-offs with the Lina on the Void, for example. But they were unable to take, like, these big team fights, right? So this is definitely something they maybe should look to address in the next game. Maybe not have them as vulnerable as they did in this game. With the draft and potentially with the laning as well. But overall, I do think Effect can definitely be proud of what they did in the mid game. But yeah, maybe have more solid laning stage.
Yeah, that and that is something, man. How that game just all of a sudden just felt like it just turned and it seemed like Effect was starting to actually have their openings, and another Roshan fight was going to help to maybe determine that direction of the game. But obviously, they never really got the chance for it. You mentioned that top shrine area is where it all started to go downhill for them. Empire doing a good job of making it work, and then the pickoff after pickoff, ultimately leading to the victory here. So Empire, the team definitely favored going into the matchup. Wasn't easy, but they do take game number 1 here in this best of 3, trying to advance onto the finals of the playoff and claim their land spot at least, as well as their even more share of that prize pool here. So, guys, we are going to take a short break. Game number 2 going to be coming up between Empire and Effect. Once again, you're tuning into the Skin Coin WCA tournament. If you type !Skin Coin in chat, you can get information on the giveaway going on, as well as if you go to skincoin.org, you can see the most recent cryptocurrency on the esports market. You can trade in your favorite Dota 2 and even CSGO skins. That's skincoin.org.